Because of insurance concerns, neither me or Tim were allowed to get into the moving truck, but the guys gave us things to carry once they were out of the truck. Stacy did a good job of telling us all where she wanted the different items, and within an hour or so we had the truck unloaded and the last of it in the house. After we got the last few boxes in the house, Tim signed that the work order had been completed satisfactorily, and he was given the bill. Then the men left to go back to their office. Tim, Stacy, and I sat around on the dining room chairs chatting and getting to know each other a bit. I learned that the young couple had just moved down from Philadelphia and had only been in town for a couple days signing the paperwork for the new house. I learned that Tim was a school teacher, and because of school budget cuts, he had been laid off. So he had found a position with our local school district. As we sat and talked, I began to get a strange feeling about Stacy, something that stood out more than it should have. I passed it off as maybe she was one of those openly friendly airline stewardess types, who hugs a lot and touches your arm when she laughs at your jokes. I have known a few of that type in my day. After a while, I decided that these two needed some time to unwind, if not unpack some things. So I bid them a good night, and went back to my home. They were a nice couple and I could see the three of us becoming good neighbors if not good friends. The next morning I woke up, and the events of the previous day were behind me. I had work to do today, and had to concentrate on that. I work from home as a financial planner, doing taxes, setting up retirements for clients, investment portfolios, and the like. That's another reason I like this nice quiet neighborhood. I could have the windows in my office open without the noise interrupting my work. I had just made myself a cup of coffee and sat down at my desk to check the morning's stock market report, when the phone rang. Hello. This is Saunders Investment Management, Alan Saunders speaking. Hi Alan, this is Stacy from next door. Did I call the wrong number? I thought I was calling you at home. I had given them my number in case they needed any more help. No, it's fine. I just happened to be in my office when I answered the phone. Oh, I see. Did I call at a bad time? No, I wasn't doing anything yet. What can I do for you? Well, if it isn't too much trouble, could you come over and help me for a bit? I know you helped us a lot moving in yesterday, but Tim had to go to Raleigh this morning, and left me here to do some unpacking. These boxes are too heavy and I'm too big in the belly to move them. Sure, no problem. I'll be right over. Oh, thank you so much. She had caught me on a slow day. I took a quick glance at the important markets, and nothing seemed to be moving around too much at the moment. So I shut the computer down and went over to see how I could be a good neighbor. When I knocked on the door, Stacy opened the door and I was a little surprised when I saw she was wearing a stretchy red bodysuit and white shorts with an elastic waistband. Hi, Alan, come on in, she said with a smile as she held the door for me. Am I too early? I asked, looking her up and down. Stacy blushed. Oh, please forgive the way I'm dressed. I don't normally look like this, but it's hard to find anything comfortable in this condition, and most of our clothes are still packed in suitcases. Poor Tim had to rummage around this morning trying to find something clean to wear to go to Raleigh. He is meeting with the state school board today to make sure his license is okay so he can start teaching, and going over and getting his driver's license changed over to North Carolina. There is certainly a lot to do when you move to a new state. Yes, there is. I totally understand. It must be tough to be pregnant and not be able to do as much as you are used to, I said, trying to be as sympathetic as I could be. It certainly is. I love being pregnant, but getting around with this can be challenging, and moving while pregnant adds a whole new dimension to it. I can imagine. Well, anytime you need help, Stacy, feel free to call on me. I'd be willing to do whatever I can to help. Thank you, Alan. That means a lot. I don't know anyone here yet, and I miss having someone to talk to. Tim is going to be gone every day all day long during school, so I won't have anyone to talk to, and I can't drive in this condition, obviously. I had my circle of girlfriends and we would get together and talk regularly, but until I can start getting out and making friends, I won't have anyone to talk to. Well, you have me, Stacy. And since I work from home, I'm almost always available for a cup of coffee and a chat, or to run to the store for you if you need something right away. Whatever I can do to make your transition here easier. I know what moving to a whole new place is like, leaving everything you once knew and trying to find your way again. It can be hard under normal circumstances, but you have your little one, and that makes it even harder. Oh, Alan, you're so understanding, she said. Stacy was a real joy to talk to, and before we knew it, we were chatting like two old friends instead of new neighbors. She told me they had met and dated while he was in college. She worked in a little coffee shop that was close by the university that the college kids hung out at. She had taken an instant liking to him, and finally, he worked up the nerve to ask her out. They dated all through his college days, and they got married shortly after he graduated. Tim had gone to work in one of the local schools, while Stacy kept working at the coffee shop. Then Tim's father passed on and left them a nice little inheritance, which they were able to save and add to little at a time. One day Stacy found out she was pregnant. She wanted to work at the coffee shop for as long as she could before quitting to have the baby. But about 3 months ago, Tim was let go from the school district. Stacy said they did okay with his unemployment and her pay from the coffee shop, but they knew neither would last long, so they decided that since there wasn't much job opportunity in Philly at the time, they would move someplace else. Both Tim and Stacy wanted a small town-friendly place to raise the baby, someplace where he or she had a yard to play in, maybe a dog, you know, the American dream kind of thing. So when he learned that there were some openings down this way, he applied and they began the house quest. I listened, completely captivated to this young mother-to-be, as she told me her story. I don't know why, but something about her struck a chord in me. She was cute and bubbly and I could see why Tim had fallen for and married her. She wore her mid-back length blonde hair loose, like a blonde waterfall cascading over her shoulders, and her blue eyes seemed to sparkle and dance when she smiled. As we talked, I suddenly found myself thinking not so neighborly thoughts of the woman next door. It sure is hot today. Is it always this hot in April here? Stacy asked, slumping in her chair. Yeah, it can be. It's not so much the heat. It's 76 degrees according to the thermometer, but it's the humidity that makes it seem hotter. I think they said we have around 70% humidity today. No wonder it's so hot. In Philly, it only gets about 60 degrees in April with only 10% humidity. I'm melting. You'll get used to it after a bit. Just keep that air conditioner going and don't spend too much time outside, especially while you're pregnant, I said. I'm afraid these kitchen chairs aren't the most comfortable, especially in my condition. Why don't we go into the living room, and I will bring us some iced tea while we talk more. Grateful to stand up and move things around, I agreed and we went into the living room. Walking around some boxes, I sat down on the sofa while she went to get the tea. A couple moments later, she came back with 2 large glasses of sweet tea. I hope you like the tea. Remember, I'm from Philly, so I don't have the knack for southern sweet tea, like you might be used to, she said shyly. She sat down rather close to me and sipped her tea while watching my reaction. Not too bad for a Yankee, I said with a grin. So how are things coming along for you? Are you getting settled in? I think things are coming along nicely. I think I am going to like it here, she said kind of breathily. Her tone and words caught my attention. I had been sitting on the sofa with Stacy to me on my right. I turned to sit sideways facing her. I kept watching her. Yes, this is a nice neighborhood, a real friendly place, I said. I'm sure you will find the folks here welcoming and hospitable. She glanced up and looked into my eyes for a few seconds, before returning her stare to my prick. Alan, she spoke softly, almost whispering as if she was afraid to hear herself say this. Did you mean what you said, any time I need help to feel free to call on you, and that you'd be willing to do whatever you could to help? Did you really mean that, Alan? Yeah, why do you need something? Actually I do. Could I see it? Stacy said, looking directly at me. See what? What do you mean, Stacy? I knew what she was talking about, but I wanted her to admit it. Firstly, I didn't want there to be any mistaken intentions. I stood up, moving directly in front of her. Is this what you wanted to see, Stacy? Yes, she hissed. Oh yes. I want to see it, Alan. I was sitting in the living room of the new neighbors I had met only the previous morning. I hadn't quite done the math to know how long they had been married, but judging by what she had told me, and how young she looked, it couldn't have been 5 years yet. They were still practically newlyweds. Cheating like this would not only be a bad way to welcome the couple to the neighborhood, but it wouldn't do their young marriage any favors either. So, I stopped us. No, Stacy, we can't. We gotta stop this. Tim could come home any time. What if he caught us? Oh please, Alan, please. Tim won't be home for hours. He said it would take most of the day to get everything done. His meeting with the state school board isn't even until this afternoon, she was pleading. Please. I know what I'm doing. I was curious where she had been going with that statement and was going to pursue it, but I looked up at the clock on the wall and saw that it was getting on in the afternoon. Tim would be coming home in a couple hours, I figured, so I thought we should probably get something done here today. I helped Stacy up, pulling her into a long, passionate kiss. Breaking our kiss, I pushed her gently back onto the sofa again, then placing my hands in hers, I looked up at her. Stacy, I don't know what brought all this on today, but I'd like to talk to you to find out. Right now though, we should probably do some unpacking so Tim won't think you've just been laying around all day. I smiled at her and kissed her hands. Thank you, Alan, for being such a good neighbor, and for I promise I'll explain everything when we can have some time together without Tim around. How about Monday morning? Can I come over for coffee or something after he leaves for work? For coffee? I raised an eyebrow and smiled. Or something. She returned my smile. I gave her hand a tight squeeze, and we got to work unpacking and putting things away. My name is Alan Saunders, and the story I'm about to tell you happened about 5 years ago now. It was a nice spring day here in Wilson, North Carolina, the place I call home these days. Wilson is a small town of about 50,000 people located about 50 miles east of state capital of Raleigh. I like it here because it has the small town feel I enjoy, but it's still close enough to Raleigh that I can go to the big city if I need to. I was sitting on my front porch that Friday morning, just enjoying the sunshine and the smells and sounds of springtime. My house has a full-width covered porch with a two-person porch swing on one end and a couple of those wooden Adirondack-type lounge chairs with a small matching table between them. I was in one of those chairs when I saw a moving van pull up in front of the house next door. The house had been for sale for some time, and I was beginning to have my doubts that anyone would ever move in. It wasn't a bad house. It did need some minor repairs, and a fresh coat of paint wouldn't hurt it, but it was structurally sound and with some work could be a cute place. I was actually glad to see someone had the vision and desire to give it a new lease on life. I watched with mild curiosity as a late-model blue Chevy Malibu pulled up into the driveway out of the way of the movers. A young man got out of the car and walked around the front of the car. I kept watching, hoping that this wasn't a young couple with noisy kids. I had gotten very comfortable in the peace and quiet of my little neighborhood. I don't have anything against kids, mind you, but I do like to be able to hear myself think. The guy walked around to the passenger side door and opened it. I watched as a young woman slowly emerged from the seat. She was having quite a bit of trouble, even with her husband's, I assumed, help, and I was just about to go over to offer my assistance when I saw the reason for her troubles. The young woman was about 24 years old, I guessed, and she was most definitely pregnant. I don't know too much about women and their pregnancies, never having a pregnant wife or girlfriend, but in my estimation she must have been at least 6 months along, judging by the belly on her. I watched as she finally found her feet, and after steadying herself by leaning on the car, she waddled into the house with his help. He came out a couple minutes later, and began to unpack the car. Wanting to be a sociable neighbor, and to find out a bit about my new neighbors, I walked over to see if I could be of help. "Hi, there. I saw you pull up. Need a hand hauling this stuff inside?" "Sure. If you'd like to grab that lamp or something." Hard to believe how much stuff we have. I grabbed the floor lamp he indicated and a couple kitchen chairs while I was at it. "My name is Alan, by the way, Alan Saunders. I live over next door," I said, tossing my head towards my house. "I'm Tim Andrews. My wife Stacy is inside. She can't help much with the moving, I'm afraid. She's pregnant." "I know. I saw her when she got out of the car. She's carrying quite a load on her own." "Yeah, I'm afraid so. Poor girl. We wanted to be done with this whole moving thing by now, but the first house we looked at, the owners took a higher offer on, so we had to start looking all over again. Then when we found this place, our financing fell through. Seems like it has taken forever for us to get this far. We would have just called the whole thing off until after the baby came, but we would have had to sign another year's lease, and we didn't want to stay there that long." "I can understand that. When is the baby due?" "Well, if she can hold out that long, the middle of July, but it may come a little sooner than that. Her family leans towards slightly early births. Her sister's baby was at 36 weeks when it decided it had had enough, and came out to see the outside world. This is her first, I assume." "Yeah, we've only been married for a year and a half." "I see." About that time we entered the house and went into the kitchen. Stacy was sitting on one of the chairs already brought into the house. "Honey, this is Alan. He lives next door." She started to get up, but I quickly stepped over to her. "Please don't get up." "Hi, Alan Saunders. I came over to see if your husband needed any help moving your things in from the car." "Oh, that's so nice of you. I'm afraid I can't do much, but direct traffic these days," Stacy said, patting her enlarged belly. "Will you just tell me where you want these things, and we'll take care of the rest then." After about 20 minutes, we had the car unloaded. While we were working on unloading the car, the movers moved the furniture and all the boxes from the moving truck into the house.